Welcome, everyone, to the Street Dog Podcast, brought to you by the Street Dog Coalition. We're a national nonprofit providing free veterinary care and related services to pets of people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. I am your host, Daria Tavana, and I'm also the Director of Development at the Street Dog Coalition. So if you're tuning in live on Facebook, hello. It is always great to have you here. Please go ahead, drop an emoji in the comments, say hi, and don't hesitate to ask a question or leave a comment if you feel inspired to. We love to engage with you in real time. And on today's episode, I'm very excited because we are joined by Carlos Aguiar, DVM. He is the co-team lead of our Jacksonville team at the Street Dog Coalition. He is also a mobile vet with the Heal Mobile in St. John's, Florida, focusing on making veterinary care accessible to all by bringing his services directly to the community and providing education on responsible pet ownership. So in addition to his professional obligations, and if you can see him if you're tuning in live, he looks very professional today. He also actively participates in volunteer events and outreach programs, and he finds joy in contributing to the community. So, as he's said in the past, the Street Dog Coalition holds a real special place in his heart due to our organization's efforts to support those in need. And Carlos is dedicated to creating a healthier, happier future through his commitment to animal welfare and community service in Northeast Florida. So, welcome to the podcast, Carlos. Woo!
Thank you. I really appreciate this. It's nice when somebody talks about you that
Right?
well. You can say some more.
This whole interview is
Good
just
thing
going to
this
be
is recorded. I'm gonna listen to it later on.
yeah, and you know what? You should. Anytime you're having a rough day or you're second guessing the impact you're having on animals, I fully encourage you to come back to this episode, give it a listen, dust your shoulder off a little bit and be like, "You know what? I'm kind of awesome." Because you are awesome, Carlos, in all
Copy that. Copy
seriousness.
that. No,
Yeah,
I really appreciate the kind words.
course, of course, of course. And I'm excited to just really dive into this with you. So maybe you can maybe you can share with us a little bit about what it means to be a mobile vet. Let's talk about that first. And maybe you can share
Okay.
with us some of the unique challenges and rewarding experiences you've encountered as a mobile vet.
Eh, Being a mobile vet is very exciting. And one of the things that drew me to it is that it's always changing. So you have to make your route, make a logical route. So you're able to see maybe 5 or 6 patients a day, and then you have to deal with obstacles, mostly the weather, the traffic. Sometimes people aren't home. Sometimes you get there and the animals don't comply. Like many times I've had to chase cats in the weirdest place, under beds, in the kitchen. Like I've sometimes you gotta use a net to net them, and there's some that crawl up the wall. And I have a technique. It's pretty good. When the cat jumps up on the air, you put the net under the cat, and they fall right in.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
So I was able to. First of all, I bought a bus out of Dade City. I found it in Craigslist. When I say bus, it's like an RV that's it's like tricked out like a clinic. So it has its surgery room. It has a sink. Pretty much all you need. So I went and I bought it out of Dade City, and I went and bought it, and then I brought it back, and I started working with that bus. But that bus was having a lot of problems, and the first tech that worked with me was Abby. Shout out to Abby Feeney.
Hey,
She
Abby.
so we were working out. We were spaying some cats, and then the AC broke, and this was in July. So we had all these surgeries, and we were like basically having like heat strokes. But the client gave us an AC, so we were able to get through that. But it's
Wow.
things like that. I've had radiators blow up on me. So then you just gotta go on the side of the road and duct tape the holes. Because what happened to this truck was that the hose was rubbing onto like it was like a bolt, and it would just make that hose blow up.
Oh my
So
God.
that time, sometimes you got to be a mechanic too.
I
I've had
was just going to say that. So you go from veterinarian to mechanic, back to veterinarian. That's a
and
lot.
sometimes, for example, if you don't use the bus regularly, the battery will die. So I've had to jump it. Um, I guess to a point, if the battery doesn't work, I'll go to the Tractor Supply and just buy another one and install it.
So you're not living a limousine lap of
No,
luxury kind
no,
of lifestyle with the heel mobile.
no.
And so it's interesting. So it sounds to me like there's a sacrifice that's made. So for oftentimes, as I'm sure people can imagine, individuals living in more remote areas, whether they're not able to come to a veterinary clinic or they're not inclined to come to a veterinary clinic or it's hard for them for whatever reason, it sounds to me like in order to make it easier for them, you kind of have to incur your own set of challenge. It's almost becomes harder for you because you're not in this cushy little veterinary office where people are just coming right up to you. You're really, like you said, playing wearing multiple hats, playing a lot of roles. You're an animal wrangler, you're a mechanic, you're a veterinarian. So it sounds to me like in order to make things easier for your patients, things are just harder for you.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of breeders,
Wow.
so it's very easy for them for me to come in and just treat 10, 15 animals. We also have the capacity to work with shelters, so we could do about 30 spay neuters in a day.
It's awesome.
We we're specialists in high volume spay neuter. So it's hard for these shelters to transport 10, 20 animals.
Right.
They have to take them and then go pick them up. And then it's a lot of labor because then they got to clean the cages. They have to stress out these animals because imagine that they're driving many times 20, 30 miles each way.
Wow.
So we've been working shelters out of Clay County. We also work out of Nassau County.
Oh,
So we have
nice.
that ability to travel, do the procedure, and then the animals stay at the location.
Oh, wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like you kind of have a hand, from breeders to shelters, you have a hand in ensuring the health of a lot of different kinds of animals. And I know, you and I were emailing back and forth, and you sent me an incredible report, the Boca Fund report, and I'm wondering if we kind of like zoom out, um, and we think about some of the issues that present barriers to individuals who are seeking affordable veterinary care. Maybe individuals that are not even necessarily, working as part of a shelter or working as part of a breeding facility, but just individuals like you and me. I'm curious to get your professional opinion, since you're like the boots on the ground kind of person. How do you think we can address the increasing difficulty for individuals with limited resources? How can we help them afford veterinary care? What do you think?
As we spoke off camera, there's a lot of influence from the hedge funds and the corporations. So they pretty much bought a large chunk of the veterinary sector, and it's mostly the ER clinics. So
Wow.
they bought a lot of these clinics, specific practices that have more than three doctors, over $1 million in revenue. And these folks have bought these clinics, and I've been looking at the financials, and they're paying sometimes up to 20 to 25 times earnings. So they're
Wow.
spec. I was thinking, if you think about this, they're assuming that for 20 to 25 years, they're not going to make any money, given the current, you know, financials.
Yeah.
Well, I assume that they're going to raise prices and they're going to make their veterinarians more efficient, either charge more or a higher, they call it the APC, the average transaction fee.
Wow.
So
Okay.
in conclusion, they're going to raise prices. They're a for-profit business, and nothing against capitalism. I grew up in a communist country, and communism doesn't work. We don't want stuff for free. It's not going to work. Trust me.
We need a happy medium between capitalism
Right,
and
right.
communism.
So these for-profit corporations, they've zoned, they've targeted these type of businesses, and they're going to raise prices. And I speculate they're also going to bring in the insurance. Pet insurance is going to be a big thing, I think, in the next decade,
I
because the
think so
prices are
too.
going to be so high. So now we're left with the people that can't afford these type of services.
Yeah.
So and it's a large majority of people. According to that study, people that make over less than $70,000 are going to be priced out.
Yeah.
So there has to be another option. And right now, what we have is the humane societies,
Yeah.
which offer low income. I actually work in a humane society during the week, maybe 2, 3 days there.
Wow.
And they have low cost spay neuter and a vaccine clinic, which just does, preventive care. But the good thing about the Street Dog Coalition, and I've seen it firsthand, is they go to places where people have mobility issues that they can't. And I've seen it firsthand. For example, we've done about 3 of these at the Saltbacker Center. Shout out to the Saltbacker Center. It's a homeless shelter, and they're doing a great job there in Jacksonville, Florida. But we've seen about 50 to 70 animals per clinic, and the
Wow.
Street Dog Coalition covered the whole cost. And I was impressed how generous you all were with these people.
Aw. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you shining a light on the fact that there are so many factors that lead there are so many factors that become barriers to veterinary care. Like we don't often, I'm able-bodied sitting in my home comfortably. Sometimes it doesn't occur to us that there are people who are not physically able to get to a clinic. They're not physically able to get to a humane society. So what I really appreciate, about the work that you do between the Heel Mobile, you seem like you work everywhere, which I love, but specifically
Yeah,
between the
I wish I could
Heel-Mobile.
work 8 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
I
I
gotta,
oh
I gotta rest
god.
sometimes. You start getting rattled.
There's
It's
part of
not
me
good.
that wishes that too, and there's also part of me that's like, I need a permanent vacation. Um, but I really appreciate this idea that this notion of going to where the people are, going to where the problems exist instead of waiting for the problems to kind of run and come to you. And I'm curious to know, we talked a bit about this like private equity funds, consolidating clinics. I know that was also in the report you mentioned to me in the veterinary industry. And I know that oftentimes in a lot of industries, once this amount of once capitalism comes in and once these smaller systems are consolidated, oftentimes this high quality care kind of goes out the window. So I'm curious, like, how do you in your own practice ensure that high quality care remains the focus regardless of who's footing the bill, regardless of whether or not it's a shelter or a breeder or the Street Dog Coalition covering for this care? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it's challenging. For
Yeah.
example, when you're an employee at a clinic, you don't have many options because the clinic is not yours. You're a salaried employee. The benefit I have is, since it's my business, I can give stuff away for free, and I can volunteer my time. But some veterinarians, unfortunately, they've had branding they've branded us as like we don't care and we're expensive. And I think veterinarians should take the lead again, and we should be the trusted source of veterinary medicine. Because many times it's not the actual veterinarian, because they're an
Yeah.
employee to somebody else.
Right.
You see, so there has to be a balance between the pet owner has to be responsible for certain
Yeah.
things. You know, if you take your animal to the veterinarian on the brink of death and you haven't done just even preventive care, you just can't attack the veterinarian and make him all his fault. You know, the
Yeah.
veterinarian are dealing with problems themselves. I
Yeah.
mean, we're burdened with crippling debt. We just have a lot of student loans. Some veterinarians are dealing with mental health issues. We're
Burnout.
dealing with these corporate raiders are just, they invaded our veterinary medicine industry, and we have a lot of stuff to deal with. So
Yeah.
sometimes pet owners, they might be going through something and they're stressed, and sometimes you got to deal with people at their worst. So
Yeah.
we have to address more like preventive care, and that's something that I've noticed with the Street Dog Coalition. If you just basically uh, vaccination, parasite control, examining the animal at least once a year, getting these animals spayed and neutered, because
Yes.
we're seeing in the shelters just preventive problems when they're 7, 8 years old. We're seeing pyometras, we're seeing the testicular tumors, mammary
Mhm.
tumors, perianal hernias. All this stuff is preventable,
Yeah.
and then just we're treating in the shelters almost 4 or 5 animals with heartworm a week. It's preventable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super preventable.
So things like this, and another thing. When I worked at a low income clinic in Jacksonville for about 3 years, and many times the animals when they would come in, they had multiple problems. I actually saw a dog. I don't know if you're gonna believe this or not, but I
I'm
saw
ready.
the dog was pregnant, had parvo and heartworm. So when I saw all of these problems, and then the people had no money, so I was
Oh,
like, "What's going on here?" That was a lot.
man.
That was a
That's
lot to
like
deal
a
with.
little bit of everything. Jesus.
Yeah, and
Wow.
what happens is it's called economic euthanasia. So people
Yeah.
don't have money, they end up at the ER, they get these big, invoices, big bills. The animal is euthanized. This is happening all the time.
Yeah. And it's very sad because, like you said, these are issues that could be prevented. Like if that dog was spayed, if maybe the caretakers of that dog had received education of any kind, um then this then maybe this dog wouldn't have to have been euthanized for any reason, let alone for economic reasons. Yeah, that's really a shame. And I just want to also acknowledge the fact that I think, like, before I started working at the Street Dog Coalition, I've had a series of animals in the past. They've had veterinary issues, or rather health issues, and I've taken them to vets. And I used to always think like, "This is so expensive. I hate how expensive this is." And then I started working at the Street Dog Coalition, and I'm like, "Wow." Considering all that you have to go through as a veterinarian for all the reasons you mentioned, from student loans to what it takes to run your own practice, it is I almost feel like I was never being charged enough. So it's really fascinating the power of education when it comes to, yes, educating people about how to take care of their animals, but also educating people like me who love animals and love veterinarians, stomp their feet around and wish it cost less, when the truth of the matter is, um, there are so many expenses that are just out of my control as, a caretaker of an animal, but also out of your control as a veterinarian. So I just want to kind of, shine a light on that and tell you that I appreciate what you do. And I'm sure you more than anybody wish that you could continue to do what you do for free. I mean, you give away so much of your time, but at the end of the day, a lot of veterinarians, especially us, the volunteer veterinarians that are part of our network, they have a business to run. So it's hard when you're faced with these really, really hard conversations with people, I'm sure.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's amazing that you're listening to me because I try to talk to my wife about private equity and student loan, and she's like, cut it up. Go back to student loan. I go on social media a lot, and I'm following the student loan crisis, and I just want to to clarify a few things
Yeah.
about the student loan crisis because it is a crisis. It's getting worse. First of all, people with student loans cannot go bankrupt. So when I hear people, oh, you took out the loan, you got to pay it back. I was like, yeah, we got to pay it back. We can't go bankrupt. There is no option.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The
Wow.
second thing is some veterinarians have gotten into ridiculous debt. I've
Yeah.
actually met three that have $500,000 debts. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the interest rates. The interest rate I've heard from 5 to like 10, 12%. And you think, why are banks giving out these interest rates for a loan that is basically has no risk, zero risk? You have to pay it back.
Right. Because you can't go
So
bankrupt. Right.
you think, because I like to see things from other people's point of view. Nobody cares about my debt. It's my problem.
Yeah.
But it's becoming a social problem
Yeah.
because there's a 15,000 veterinary shortage. I mean, think about that. Not
Yeah.
only do veterinarians treat dogs and cats, that's the most lucrative area. That's where most vets are going because they've gotten into so much debt. But there's vets that they deal with chickens, they deal with
Yeah.
cows, they deal with the food supply.
Right.
They prevent from diseases from getting into the United States. The bird flu,
Right.
mad cow,
Zoonosis and
African
stuff like
swine
that.
fever. If
Right.
any of these diseases gets into the United States, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars of loss. I mean, think back when they had to basically depopulate all these chickens. See,
Yeah.
this is becoming a social problem. It's not only a veterinary problem.
Right.
So you see, and I don't really know what the solution is. Maybe it's the vets. Vet schools are charging too much. Those people know that they're the only club in town, and they're
Yeah.
charging whatever. They only take 100 applicants a year, so they're like, oh, we're going to charge whatever we want
Right.
because we're the only option. But now here in Jacksonville, they're opening a new veterinary school, so they're going to take more applicants
That's
soon.
right. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it sounds like I know you said it's getting worse. Um, but hopefully we've hit some kind of rock bottom and hopefully
Yeah,
hopefully there is some hope in the future. Like I'm excited about this new school in Jacksonville and I'm excited about just the natural progress of the veterinary field. And the last question I want to ask you, um, which kind of has nothing to do with what we were talking about, but maybe we can find a way to make it relevant, is I know that we were also kind of briefly talking off camera via email about about technology. So I'm wondering, here we have like 5 minutes left. I'm asking a question out of left field, but how do you think, because obviously there's a lot of technology that goes into providing veterinary care, a lot of engineering that is a part of the Healmobile. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you think technology can be effectively utilized and harnessed in veterinary medicine, maybe even particularly mobile veterinary medicine, to improve accessibility um, while also, safeguarding animal health?
Daria, I got a funny story for you.
Oh, I love it.
So
Lay it on me.
a friend of mine, Dr. Kim Neeson, she invited me to the Jacksonville Veterinary Medical Society.
Mm,
It's our local veterinary group. And I went there, and there was a Dr. Sutcliffe. He was the former president of the Florida VMA. How veterinary medicine works is that there's the AVMA, which
Right.
is national. Then we have a Florida VMA, and then we have our local JVMS, which is like a smaller group. And he said there is an existential crisis coming for veterinarians.
Wow.
And I was like, what existential? What's going on? And then he was talking about some company that was selling Viagra, and this company was going to come. And I was like, wait, the veterinarians are going to get in a fight, and there's somebody selling erectile dysfunction pills. So I got interested in it, and this is
Oh,
this
I'm
is what
listening. You
happened.
had me at Viagra. Let's go. I'm listening.
I had you. So I was there, and I was drinking wine. And when I drink the $20 wine, I kind of lose control of my emotions. So I was like,
Woo!
what's this guy talking about? So I started researching it. And what happened is that there's this company called Dutch Pet, and Dutch Pet has telemedicine capabilities. And what they mostly do is tele-advice, which is they give advice to pet owners, but they're pushing for telemedicine, that
Wow.
is to diagnose and treat through the phone. And back in 2022, they went up against the Florida VMA,
Mm,
and the Florida VMA won. We They don't want this. They don't want telemedicine without VCPR, meaning
mm,
once a year you examine the animal. You know
right.
who the animal is. You know what the problems are, right? But then they're coming now in the spring with a coalition. They're
Mm,
coming with a coalition of people, and they include TUI.com, the SPCA, and other folks with a lot of money. And then they hired a lobbyist. I think his name sounds like Cushing's disease or something. He sounds like some disease. And they're gonna come
these
ram.
lobbyists are just
They're gonna
walking
ram this
diseases.
down the VMA, the, the Florida VMA. Like they're like,
Wow.
no, you're gonna. Is like so. Let me explain to you what's happening. I'm gonna just give you a simple analogy.
Go for it.
It's but you know who Gordon Gecko is
I
from Wall
don't.
Street, the movie. Well, there's a movie called Wall Street, and Gordon Gecko was like the personification of greed and money is good and all of this.
Ooh.
And he's basically coming here to take over Dr. Doolittle. You know, this guy's coming here and he's gonna buy out Dr. Doolittle and tell him what to do. And I think the main question is here is who should regulate veterinary medicine?
Yeah.
Or should it be the veterinarians, the ones that studied it, that do it, that know all the rules and regulation, or these other folks just because they have a lot of money
Yeah.
and influence? That's what we should. That's what we should decide. And I think it's the Florida VMA.
Yeah. Power to the people. I'm right there with you. Yeah. I appreciate that. And I think it's hard because oftentimes, of course, the individuals with the most amount of money have the most amount of influence, have the most amount of decision-making power. And and it's a shame because a lot of veterinarians like you, who are not only putting in the time and the energy to actually help these animals, but are the most knowledgeable about the work that needs to be done to not only treat the animal, but resurrect and save this whole industry. You guys do not get the opportunity to do that. So it's been really interesting throughout this conversation to hear your perspective on equity when it comes to, the world of animal health, because you're the first person to really come on this podcast and talk about this in this way and talk about how capitalism is rearing its ugly head. And it's so interesting how you said that you grew up in a communist country,
I did. I did.
and that's like a whole
I
nother
came to
podcast
Miami.
episode.
I came to Miami when I was 8. Yeah, yeah, it's a good story.
My
But
God.
back to Viagra. I
Back
got
to
to
Viagra. I'm
tie it all
sorry. Go
together.
ahead.
The guy that started Dutch Pet, he had this other company called Hims. He sold it for a ton of money. So it's basically a pill mill.
Uh,
You know, he sells pills, and now he wants to get a boiler room full of veterinarians to send, one guy sells Viagra, the other one sells Clavamox and Carprofen.
Oh my God.
So w- back to being a mobile vet.
Yeah,
That's one of
back
the
to being a
things.
mobile vet.
One of the things that I like. I'm not controlled by a corporation.
Yep.
I can do what I like. And I just got a lot more passion for this career ever since. I don't have all these corporate handlers telling me what to do and not making enough, and that I don't do anal glands, because it's petty. They put
Right.
these bureaucrats to
Yeah.
basically run the veterinarian's life. And
Yep.
a lot of people are just fed up.
Wow.
So that's what I think about that.
That's so that's what I think about that. You need to start your own podcast. I firmly believe that. I think that your voice is, in my experience, the past couple of years talking to a lot of veterinarians, your voice and your perspective is indicative of the perspectives of a lot of veterinarians. And I think it's so cool how you have found, the work that you do at the Street Dog Coalition is amazing, but I'm so inspired by the work that you do with your own business, the Heel Mobile. And I actually want to let our listeners know that in the notes for this episode, down below, I've included a link to your website. So I know that a lot of people listening, they're animal welfare enthusiasts, but they're also veterinarians. So I want to encourage everyone to check out Carlos's website to learn more about the Heel Mobile. Um, and and yeah, it's just very inspiring because it seems like you have found a solution for you as a veterinarian that not only is a solution for you, but is also a solution for a lot of individuals who need affordable veterinary care, from breeders to shelters to just individuals out there living their lives trying to do their best.
And for
And
any veterinarian out there who's interested in mobile services, to get in contact with me, I
yes.
could help you uh, get more involved. Because a lot of vets, they have a vitamin C deficiency.
And
They
what is
have no
that? There's a joke
clients,
there.
cash or credit. So after your job is done, you don't want to be the old guy at the vet,
That's
you
right.
know, because after I've seen a lot of vets as they get older, they start having neck problems and they start shaking.
Oh my
And
God.
then the corporations take you out back and shoot you in the head. They just get rid of you.
Seriously.
Yeah,
They,
yeah,
they,
yeah.
they treat you like old Yeller.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
So
Carlos.
this way you could
So
have your own
funny.
business that you could possibly sell, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah,
another thing
absolutely.
too, veterinarians, they have to start flexing up a little bit. I have a friend of mine, he has a mobile service also, and he says that he doesn't work for less than 23% production. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So
That's good.
if you see that you're producing, you should also demand for what you do. And I
Yeah.
just want to give a shout out because I promise I want
Give a
to
shout
recognize
out.
Dr. Goriki. She works with me. She's the one that pretty much sets up everything, and I just show up. And
Aw.
also the Salbarker Center. There's some kids in the local high school, Beachside High School, that come and volunteer their time. And also want to recognize Dr. Crystal. He's retiring soon, but he's one of the founders of the JVMS, and he's done really great work, and we just want to recognize all his efforts.
Oh, that's
He's
amazing.
skiing right now somewhere in the Rockies or something.
Must be nice.
It must be nice.
It sounds like, Carlos, you have I love your attitude. I love your sense of humor. I love your perspective. We got to not only get you back on this podcast, but
I got more stories.
you got more stories. I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
for next time. For next
for next time. And if you need help starting a podcast, you better let me know. Cause I really appreciate your perspective. And I want to thank you for all the shout outs you gave, because I think so often, we bring folks on this podcast, we shine a light on the work that they do. And of course, it really takes a village of people to allow you to shine, to allow you to do the incredible work that you do to help all different kinds of animals in all different kinds of ways. Your resume is awesome. Like, it just, and your passion is just it's contagious. So I want to thank
And also
you.
people
Yeah,
should when you're gonna contribute, when you're gonna give donations, donate locally. Donate for people that are doing stuff in your community.
I
Your
love that.
Humane Society, the Street Dog Coalition, they're
Right.
actually all over the place.
Yeah.
If you're gonna help somebody, help people in your community.
Love that. I really
Yes.
do love that. I absolutely love that. I think that it's on us as, we're global citizens, but we live locally. And I know that for me, it's important to donate locally, to support local businesses. And I appreciate the work that you do. And I want to encourage also individuals to, like I said, click the link in the show notes, learn more about what you do. And I know your contact information is on your website. So if individuals who are listening to this podcast are curious about creating a mobile clinic and what goes into creating a mobile clinic, or if they're individuals who are interested in even volunteering at a local street dog coalition clinic, in Florida, I'm going to encourage them to reach out to you. And yeah, Carlos, this has been awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're just as much fun as I thought you would be.
Thank you.
I
You were
appreciate.
fun too. We should talk again.
Hey, thank you. Yes, please. I really, really appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate your optimism, but I also appreciate how you just keep it real. You just keep it a
Yeah.
buck. You're like, here's the problems that are happening. Here's the solutions we need to create in order to solve these problems. And the moral of the story here is to think twice about doing business with someone that is selling Viagra and a bunch of other pills in the same room. That's shady.
Yeah.
That's giving some Miami vibes. Although we got people like that in Philadelphia too, where I live. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we have a comment. Someone just commented. Krista said, "Really inspiring. Thanks for what you do." Thank you, Krista. Thanks for tuning in. And
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Carlos. And again, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much to our audience members for listening. Carlos, I feel like this is gonna be the first of many conversations. So again, thank you, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week.
Okay, Derek. Talk to you soon.
Take care until next time.
Bye.